So now that we know how to insert data into our database, we want to consider validating our data before it actually gets entered. What does that mean? Well, right now, the way we have it set up, if we just click Add Friend, we will end up with an empty friend, which is not great. So what do we mean by validation? It means that we're going to check whether the information they have provided meets a certain expectation. And if it does, then we can go ahead and put it in the database. But if it doesn't, we should let the user know that what they provided is insufficient and not add it to the database. So first things first, let's talk about that validation piece. It's going to be a set of conditional statements, and length is going to come in really handy for these, where we can check if a field wasn't provided. For example, if the field length is less than 1, then we know that they didn't provide a first name or a last name, or in this case that the occupation was less than 2 characters. Then we're going to set this Boolean to false, and if that Boolean ends up being false, then we won't add them to the database, but if it's good, then we'll go ahead and add them. So let's take this code and put it in here. So before we do any of this, we will check to see if the information that they provided, first name, last name, and occupation coming from the form, meet these expectations. If they do, then we can go ahead and add the user to the database, which is this code that we had previously. So we can add all of this into this if check. So if it is valid, then we can go ahead and do this, but if it's not, we shouldn't do it. So now, if I try to refresh this page and add a friend, I still have my old empty friend, but nothing else happened. I don't know that, and I need to signal, though, to the user that there was an issue in processing their information. So that's step 2, adding this error message. So Flask comes with this pretty handy tool called flash messaging, because as we know, if we redirect, we're going to lose all of the information, so we can't really save that. So what Flash allows us to do is it holds information for a single redirect. So if we import it at the top of our import statements, so we're going to import flash messaging, all we have to do is in our statements, we just need to add the flash, call the flash method, and send in a string of the statement that we want to add. And we can add as many of those as we need. So for example, please enter a first name, please enter a last name, and maybe something like please enter a valid occupation. So we can also add a successful message if we want, which we can do like so. And this just shows you another way that you can run through that. So let's go ahead and it will work, but we need that message to appear on our HTML page. So what we can do is take this snippet of code and place it on our HTML where we want it to show. If you want to add classes or something like that so that the text will show up as red, you can do that. But we'll just throw this up here so that we can see it in action. So now if I try to add a friend and I don't have the appropriate, oops. So this is important to note too, the flash messages, because it does take advantage of session, we do need to set a secret key. So don't forget about that. So let's go back and try to add an empty friend again. And we'll see these messages. Please enter a first name, please enter a last name, please enter occupation. So maybe we did one of them, but we didn't do all of them. We'll see just the 2 that are related. So if I put Ron Swanson and then just don't put an occupation, then I will just see the message that says please enter a valid occupation. But if I do everything appropriately, then I should see a message that says successfully added, and there he is. And that's validations.